it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to card 9 of my 2019 holiday card series. Today I'm going to be using this stamp set from Neat Tangled called Holiday Baking. So I have stamped all my images out on some Nina Solar White cardstock with Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and I'll be coloring with my Copic markers. I wanted the bear to look like a polar bear, since polar bears are one of my absolute favorite animals. So I'm using some warm grays on him. I'm using W00, W1, and W3. I'm starting by laying in some shadows with the W3, so those are anywhere that the sun would not hit. I have them along the back side of his body, and then on the far arm where that bowl would be casting a shadow. I also put like a little divot on his leg there where his little foot is sticking up, just to create a shadow there as well. And then I'm going to blend that out with the W1. I don't want him to look too gray, so I'm still going to leave a lot of white area. Then I'll blend out with the W00, and I'm just going to soften the edge of the line that I've been coloring and then let that fade off into the white areas. So he will just be a white polar bear, but he'll have some nice definition to him. I also decided to do the white icing on the cake, or I believe this is actually what is called figgy pudding, unless I might be wrong, correct me if I am. But I think that that is a traditional British dessert, and I thought that the bear and mouse could be whipping up the frosting to go on top, or the glaze, and so I have that on top of the whisk and also in the mixing bowl. Then I'm adding in a W5 and doing the bear's muzzle with those darkest 3 warm grays. I just thought that would be something a little bit different to have that nice contrast there. I decided to do the mouse in some light brown, so I'm using E50, E51, and E53. Starting with the E53 and laying a little shadow on the back ear and also the edges of his ear as it connects to his little head. I also did some shadow on the back of his body and underside of his arm. And then I'm blending that out with the E51. And then I'm going to fill in his body and face with that E50, except I'm going to leave a little bit in the area of his nose just white. I decided I wanted a bit more contrast, so I added in the E55, and then I'm going to blend that out with the E53, and I was much happier with that. I just thought that little bit of extra darkness really finished him off nicely. And I also used those shades to color in the wooden spoon sticking out of the bowl of frosting in the bear's hand. I'm going to bring in the R11 and R12 to color the inside of the mouse's ear. I started with the R11 and then added a little depth with the R12, and I'm going to use those colors to do the bird's belly as well. And then I will add some rosy cheeks to the bear. Oh, I also did his ear, I forgot about that. But I did do some rosy cheeks with the R11 on all 3 of those critters. And then I used just the R12 for the mouse's little tail. Then moving on to BG10 and BG11 for the bird. I'm doing my shadows with that BG11 and then blending out with the BG10. And then I'll go back in and add a little bit more of that BG11 just to darken things up since these colors are so similar. So that little double layer of the BG11 just really helped bring out some depth. And then I also decided to go over the frosting once again. I didn't like that it was the exact same color of the polar bear, so I'm just adding that tiny bit of BG10 to that to kind of mix in with the warm gray and the white, and it'll just like separate it a little bit from the color of the bear. And then I did blend that out with the colorless blender just to kind of soften the edges of that into the white. For the figgy pudding, I'm going to use E43, E44, E47, and E49. I'm just going to start with that E49 down toward the bottom edge of the plate and then I'm going to blend up toward the icing with the rest of the colors. So I've actually never had figgy pudding, but I wonder if it is something like spice cake. I really love to bake spice cake, especially in the winter. I just love those warm and sharp flavors from the cinnamon and the cloves and the nutmeg. And sometimes I'll even like shred some apple into it for an extra pop of flavor. So if you've had figgy pudding, let me know down in the comments, like if it's something similar to that. I did also add a little dot detail just to give that cake some texture, just mostly with the E49 and E47. I maybe added a little E44 in there as well to just help those blend together. And then just went over it with the E43 once again to fade them back in so they're not too stark. And then finally, I'm going to take the R22 and R29, and I'm going to do the cherry in the little bird's mouth, and also the two little cherries on top of the cake, or maybe they're supposed to be holly berries, because those are definitely holly leaves, but hopefully they're cherries and it's just meant to look like holly, because I don't think holly berries are edible. But anyway, moving on to the little plate, I'm using G00, G02, and G03. These are kind of some minty greens, and I thought that might look like jadeite or something, just nice and festive and celebratory for the holidays. So I'm just blending with that G03 from the outside edge toward the center. And then G02 is the midtone, and then that G00 is going to be the highlight. And I did do a double layer on that plate just to really intensify those colors and bring that plate to life. And I also decided to do the top ring of the mixing bowl with those colors. I just thought it would be nice to use them twice on the card. I like to repeat colors throughout just to kind of make it a little bit more appealing to your eye. And then I'm going to bring in some darker greens, the G24, G28, and G29. I'm going to use just the G28 and the G24 for the holly leaves, and then I'll use all three shades on the mixing bowl. So I thought I had the G29 in my hand to begin with, but it was actually the G28. So now I'm going to go back to my G29 and just go over what I previously did, and then I'll go back to the G28 and blend that out a bit. And then I'll use the G24 for the majority of the bowl so that it looks nice and round and has that highlight down the center. And I actually did decide to add in the G21 as well, just because I wanted it to get even softer in the center. I'm going to use C3 and C5 to color in the base of the whisk. First I thought just the C3 would be good, but I needed that bit of depth in there, so I did add in the C5, but just use the C3 for the bird's beak. And then I'm going to take a black gel pen and just go over all of the critters' eyes to make them nice and bright and shiny. Just brings them to life a little bit more. And then I'll trim these images out with the matching dies. For my sentiment, I'm going to take a scrap of red cardstock. I believe this is chili pepper from Lawn Fawn. And I just treated that with my EK Success powder tool. And then I'm stamping down my sentiment with some Versamark ink. This is just a clear sticky ink that works great for heat embossing. So I'm going to coat that sentiment with some white embossing powder. And then I will bring my heat gun to that and heat that up from the back side first. This just helps to eliminate any warping. And then once it's heated up for a few seconds from the back, I'll bring it to the front and just melt that powder until it's white and glossy. Then while I have my MISTI out, I'm also going to stamp on the inside of my card. I'm using Lawn Fawn's bubblegum ink to stamp down on my card base, which I believe is Lawn Fawn's Ballet Slippers cardstock. So I just stamped that down a few times to get a really good impression, and it says it's beginning to smell a lot like Christmas. The pattern paper that I'm using is the Merry Little Christmas by Pebbles 6x6 pad. So I've cut down 2 pieces. I'm going to use this pink, red, and green and aqua stripe on the background. So that is going to go over the entire card front. And then I'm going to center this peppermint candy piece right in the middle of the card, press that down into place as well. And then I have die cut the Avery Elle oval burst out of some white cardstock and added some Scotch 3M foam tape to the back of that so that it's well supported. So I'm just going to peel off the release papers. I even supported those little inside pieces there. And then I'm going to pop that one right over top of the peppermint candy piece so that it will just show the inside of that pattern paper through the opening of the window. Then I'm going to begin adhering my images, and I am using a combination of foam tape and liquid glue because I want some of them to sit on top of the oval burst, and then some of them are going to overlap into the window. So I'm just going to fiddle around with those until I have them placed exactly where I want them. I wanted the little mouse to be holding up the whisk, so he is also helping to frost the little cake or the figgy pudding. I'm not sure if it's really a cake, but anyway. Before I add the little bird and figure out her placement, I'm going to take my sentiment, which I have trimmed down with one of the banner dies from the Neat Tangled scalloped die set. So I'm just going to figure out where I want that placed on my card, and then I'm going to trim that down and add a bit of foam tape to the end. And then that is going to go over on the left-hand side. So I'll get that situated, and then I can take the little bird and pop her up as well on the top. So she's making off with a cherry that she's going to go off in the corner and eat by herself, I guess. Or maybe she's just swooping in and adding the third cherry to the top of the cake. Who knows? Maybe I misjudged her. Of course, I'm going to finish off the card with some crystal stickles. I am coating all of the frosting with that. And then I'm going to bring in some Christmas red stickles, and I'm going to add that to the 3 little cherries. I just thought that would be a fun and festive touch with all that really bright red glitter in it. So that is going to complete my card for today. I'm going to lift that up to the light so you can see how it sparkles and give you another peek at the inside as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button, and you can also subscribe to my channel. I think this one turned out super sweet. This was one that I had wanted to do last year in my holiday card series, but then unfortunately my dog passed away and I just didn't have the heart to continue anymore, but I'm glad I was able to get to it this year. On screen, you can find links to the previous 2 years of holiday card series for day 9. I also have playlists for all of my holiday card series going back to my first year in 2013, so feel free to check any of those out. And I hope you all have an absolutely amazing day. Bye-bye.